Why he's made of steel because he's his boner. I don't know. That was dumb. Anyways. Welcome to another episode of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Good. It's kind of weird that we're recording on a Thursday night. We usually don't record Thursday. It's different. I hope no big news story breaks on Friday or something like that. Like they cancel Star Wars or something like that. I would be pissed.
Yeah, and you know, occasionally the big news story does kind of break on Friday afternoon, Friday night, so hopefully it won't happen like you said, but
yeah.
If you're listening to this episode on Monday and we do not talk about something that just happened
about
over the
Star
weekend,
Wars getting canceled.
Yeah, that is why we were recording this Thursday night.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about the Oscars. How'd you feel about the show?
I liked it a lot. I liked Chris Rock quite a bit. I thought that he was really funny. And I was a bit disappointed because I went into work the next day and obviously everybody was talking about it. And more than one person was like, I had to turn it off because of the political undertones.
Oh, really?
I was like, shut the fuck up.
As comedy, I didn't like how they kind of kept going back to that well.
Yeah.
It's obviously almost a 4-hour show. And so the fact that they kept going back to that kind of bothered me. But I thought the monologue was probably the most memorable monologue I've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
like people are going to be talking about that for a while.
I thought he did awesome. The one part of his hosting that I didn't really like was whenever he went to the movie theater in Compton, and that seems to be something everybody else thought was hilarious. And
really?
I didn't think it was that funny.
I thought it was kind of funny.
I mean, that's fine. I didn't think it was necessary for the telecast.
Yeah, I don't think the Girl Scout thing was
that was kind of weird. That was kind of
weird. If I'm
too.
cutting something out of that show, it was the Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
It was almost like Neil Patrick Harris when he did the whole magic trick thing.
Yeah.
That was pretty lame.
My favorite, maybe not my favorite part, but one of my favorite parts, and you're probably going to disagree because I don't think you're quite as big of a fan as I am, but whenever Sacha Baron Cohen came out as Ollie G,
nah.
Oh, I thought it was so great. And then it was even better when I found out afterwards that they told him don't do shit like that. And like his wife had to sneak in all the beard and the hat and everything in her purse.
Oh, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, it was like The Godfather. She put it in like the handicapped bathroom and he went in after her and found it and put it on, and it was like pretty stealthy. But
yeah, I thought that was all right. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. I liked the show for a while, but then it kind of wears on you.
I've never actually seen the show.
Oh, really?
I'm a huge Sacha Baron Cohen fan, and I love Borat, and I think Bruno's severely underrated.
I think it's sufficiently rated.
Dude, it has like a 5 on IMDb, and that is criminal. That movie is not only funny, but I think that it has a message in there somewhere about homosexuality in America and how people see it, and I think that it's a strong message that gets overlooked.
I think you need to pump the brakes on Bruno.
What's funny, and I didn't realize it until they said he was an Academy Award nominee. I was like, well, was it for Hugo?
Yeah.
And no, it was for screenplay for Borat.
Yep.
That's crazy to me. I don't know how that got by me whenever that happened, but that was pretty funny too.
Yeah, for sure. I posted a video on our YouTube channel of my reaction, so I mean, I like the show a lot. Like I said, I didn't think that them kind of going back to that well kind of wore on as the show went on. Is there anything like awards wise that you were surprised by or disappointed or?
Just very disappointed and surprised Sylvester Stallone didn't win for Creed,
sure,
because that dude is not going to have another shot at it. Like that was his going away Oscar, and it got snatched by that guy from Bridge of Spies that I don't even honestly know that well. I know he's a big stage actor, but I didn't even see Bridge of Spies. So
it was underwhelming.
Like I could have seen maybe if Christian Bale got it or some of the guys for other movies, but like the one guy I had not seen his performance and had no idea about is the one who won. I was really surprised. I
was disappointed, but at the same time, it's Sly. That might be his last chance.
Yeah.
but that is that guy's first and probably only chance. So at the same time, it's kind of hard to knock that guy winning.
How big is his part in that movie?
It's a fairly big part. I mean, obviously Tom Hanks carries that movie, but he's kind of his counterpart in the movie. He's more in the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And then Tom Hanks kind of takes over, and then he shows up a little at the end, but for the most part, it's him and Tom Hanks at the beginning, and then it's kind of Tom Hanks in the middle, and then, there's some stuff with them at the end.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, he was fine in that movie. I just didn't like that movie as much as everybody else did. I was definitely disappointed that Star Wars didn't win anything.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't up for much to begin with, unfortunately.
I was happy that Mad Max won a ton of stuff, like the technical awards.
Yeah, I saw this hilarious tweet that was something along the lines of, everybody who's won for Mad Max looks like they were in the movie Mad Max.
Yeah. I was live tweeting the Oscars, and I got like uncharacteristically drunk watching it, so my tweets got a little bit less and less. Well, I thought they were hilarious, but they got a little out of hand towards the end.
Well, I noticed, and I don't know if you went back and deleted them or if you just stopped like midway through, but I was on Twitter too. Yeah. Not from our account, from my personal account. And I was like, oh, Pat's tweeting the Oscars. Then after a while, they just kind of stopped. I'm like, you either went to bed or passed out or something.
My favorite one, and probably obviously the most inappropriate one, is there was one guy who thanked Plan B. And then he talked about how he was such proud to be these kids' fathers, and I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, whenever
obviously the Plan B is probably a production company.
Yeah,
or something.
it's Brad Pitt's production company, and my wife had the same reaction. She's like, "Did he just thank Plan B?"
That was my proudest moment of live tweeting the Oscars. It was my somewhat abortion joke. All right. So as always, we're going to start off each episode by talking about what we're into. So Tyler, what are you into this week?
Last night, I went and saw Eddie the Eagle.
Okay,
which
cool.
is the new film starring Taron Egerton and Hugh Jackman about... it's funny because I had never heard this story, but apparently the more I did research, the more of it's a big deal. Like, were you familiar with Eddie the Eagle before this movie came out?
Nope.
Okay. So it's about this guy named Eddie from Great Britain who his lifelong dream is to get into the Olympics. And so he discovers the sport of ski jumping. And there's not been a person to do it from Great Britain since like the 1920s. And so he's kind of a shoo-in. If he can just kind of get it together, he's going to go to the Olympics for Great Britain. And they put this restraint on him to where he has to make a certain jump to be able to go to the Olympics. So it's kind of about him training to make that jump. And, he meets Hugh Jackman along the way, and Hugh Jackman coaches him. And of course, Hugh Jackman in most underdog sports movies, the coach has some dark history, and and that's the same here. And it's really,
did he help the Canadian team cheat?
No, not quite. I don't know. It's the typical underdog story. Like, we've seen this story a million times in a million other sports movies. I would say that this is in the upper echelon. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. I didn't realize it is produced by Marv, which is Matthew Vaughn's production company, who's the guy who directed Kingsman, which is probably how Taron Egerton got the part. But what I was most pleased with in this film was Taron Egerton, because I think we had talked about it. We were both disappointed that this was like his follow-up to Kingsman, but he knocks it out of the park. Like, he shows off his acting chops a little bit. And I think that he has a really bright future ahead of him. Hugh Jackman was also great. I kind of, with him, it's like I see Wolverine every time I see him.
Yeah.
And he was great in it, kind of surpassed that and let me see his performance as his coach instead of just Wolverine teaching somebody how to ski jump. Christopher Walken.
That would be some kind of movie.
Christopher Walken's in it, actually. Briefly, he's kind of more of a cameo, and he's fine in it. But the one thing, so like, I think that the story's good. I think that it holds up as an underdog movie, because there's so many of them. I would say there are two disappointing things. One is, after I looked up the true story after I saw it, turns out Hugh Jackman's character does not exist in real life.
Oh, yeah?
So that was kind of a bummer. And then also, there's CGI in it. Most of the jumps look practical, but there's certain parts of a few jumps where it's like a close-up on the person's face, or it's from a distance, and there are a few that are CGI, and those few are really bad. Like,
Oh, yeah.
really terrible CGI that took me out of it. Like, so the ones that are real are cool, but the CGI ones just took me out of it because I was like, that is awful. Like,
Yeah.
you could pay a little bit more money to get that to look more realistic. So I would recommend seeing it. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Cool.
It definitely surprised me because I didn't think it was going to be anything special.
I'll probably have to catch this on Netflix or something like that. Cause
I mean, I wouldn't rush out to the theater to see it, but yeah, not bad.
Cool, man. I'm going to talk about, if you follow us on Instagram, which you should, at the Nerds Podcast, you probably already know that I got Far Cry Primal last week. I was waiting at Best Buy, and I'm a child and I have no willpower. So I bought it. It looked really cool, and I'd heard a lot of great things about it. So I picked it up, and it reminds me a lot of Ark, that game that I was talking about a few episodes ago, in the sense that and it's kind of very Ice Age type of environment, like a jungle, just like Ark, except for there's no dinosaurs in this one. There's woolly mammoths and like saber-toothed tigers and stuff like that, but there's no dinosaurs. And it's weird because I was trying to explain it to somebody at work the other day. I said, Ark allows you to do more, but there is more to do in Far Cry, if that makes any sense. Because Ark is fun in the sense that it lets you do all of this stuff. Like, you can do whatever you want, but there's nothing telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And Far Cry, it puts restraints on some of the things that you can do, but it gives you things to do. So I don't know. I really enjoy playing Ark, but at a certain point, there's so much to do that I'm just like, I don't know what else to do. Like, it's kind of tough to explain, but I like the fact that Far Cry is open world, but it has directives. Like, I've only played a couple of the actual, like, the main storyline, and I've just really been going around and getting all these specialists for my tribe and going around capturing all these campsites and just really cool, like, side mission stuff. I kind of get lost in these types of games because, and it becomes a problem because I will go and do all of these side missions, but then I will go back and do the story, and I'm way farther advanced. Like, my character's way higher level than the game expects you to be at that point of the story. So it makes the story kind of easy. I thoroughly enjoy doing all these side quests and building up my character and whatnot. You can tame animals like you can in Ark, and you can ride them, and it's kind of it's kind of cool going around and trying to basically collect all these animals, and it's just a lot of fun. Like I said, it's very similar to Ark if you've played that game. It's just kind of open world in this jungle, and you're trying to get all these resources. Also, you have to hunt and keep yourself alive, obviously, but you're also trying to go through all of these outposts and gain population for your tribe, and it's really fun. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, I had considered actually buying this game when it came out because I thought it was pretty interesting, but I have a couple other games that I need to play first, so it would just be sitting on my shelf, honestly, and so I couldn't justify spending the money. But it's something that does look interesting for sure. Yeah,
I probably shouldn't have bought it either because I also have a couple of games. I just bought Unravel on the Xbox Live or store, and so I haven't really gotten into that much. I mean, that was only $20, so I mean, it wasn't a huge investment, but I'll be playing Far Cry for a while, and who knows if I'll get back to that or not. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. You ready to move on to comics?
Yeah, for sure. What are you reading this week?
So I read a new #1 from Marvel.
Okay.
It's Black Widow #1. And I was really hesitant on picking this one up just because I enjoy the character Black Widow, but I had never read any of her comics previously. And we both talk about how, hesitant we are to pick up new titles with how much we already read. But I thought I'd give it a go. And if I don't like issue 1, no harm, no foul. And I really did like issue 1, but not much happens in it. It's really hard to talk about because it's essentially a giant chase scene. Okay. There's not really much dialogue. So it opens up with the SHIELD helicarrier, Black Widow's on it, and Maria Hill just comes over the overhead and says, Black Widow's an enemy. Don't let her leave. She stole something. Your mission is to get it back. And so basically all these SHIELD agents turn on Black Widow, and she ends up jumping out of a window of the helicarrier, and chaos ensues. And, she lands through the chase. She ends up landing, and surviving, but then there's a chase on land and not much else happens besides just awesome artwork and awesome set pieces, but it doesn't make for great conversation, unfortunately. I would definitely recommend it. Especially issue 1 is like a 5-minute read because it's honestly it's essentially a picture book, but it ends with a showdown between her and a SHIELD agent, and he's like, I don't know what you stole, but it must be important. And she's like, yeah, I don't know either, or some shit like that. Yeah. So it doesn't offer any resolution. It's hard to know really where the series is going, but the art was fantastic. It was really cool reading a chase scene like that, especially one that lasts a whole issue. But I mean, it keeps your attention. It keeps you engaged through the set pieces. So it's pretty cool. I'll have to give it a couple more issues once the narrative really starts to see if I'm going to keep up with it. Yeah. But it's off to a fun start for sure.
That's a problem. And I think I've talked about this before on past episodes, where I'm getting to the point where I'm much more of a miniseries graphic novel type of guy, because I feel like this is a problem in comic books in general, is the fact that they don't give you a whole lot of the story because they don't want to blow their load, especially with these big characters. Yeah. That their backstories have already been established because they don't want to change too much because these are popular characters and popular franchises. And it seems like they just lead you along for a long time before it ever pays off. If it does, it's usually often it's not very satisfying. So
I think that's probably why you and I like Batman so much. Yeah. Is because, Scott Steiner and Greg Capullo have done these arcs of story and there always is a payoff.
Yeah, for sure.
If they don't want to mess with the things that have come before, they make new characters like the Court of Owls or
Mr. Bloom
or
Mr.
Really cool. Bloom and that kind of stuff. I forget who was the guy in 0 Year, not the Riddler, obviously. The guy with all the bones.
I thought he was already... He was like one of the first Batman villains.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they made him up.
No.
Some Batman fan I am, right?
I'd have to fact check that, but I'm almost positive that he was like one of the first Batman villains.
Oh, well, that's cool though that they would have reached back that far. But anyways, that's a little off topic, but I understand what you're saying.
They're kind of weird. I mean, weird in a good sense. The fact that they almost do it like, who cares? Like, they almost have that attitude of like, they of course care about the character, but they just kind of like, well, I'm not, if you don't let me do it the way I want to do it, I won't do it.
Yeah.
I know that he's won a lot of awards. I think American Vampire has won some awards. Yeah. So he kind of has that clout to say, well, if you don't let me do what I want to do, then I just won't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think he definitely is in a unique situation to be able to do that. But for comic books in general, it's just like certain X-Men books, it's like they haven't brought back Wolverine yet. They also haven't brought back Cyclops. And it's just like they keep leading you to believe that they're going to. But at this point, I'm kind of getting to the point where I'd rather read miniseries because I know those are going to end. And they're going to, if they don't pay off, I haven't invested that much time. And just obviously graphic novels are the same way, they eventually end. Of course, I'm going to keep reading my favorite characters and I always get sucked into new books, but
I definitely agree with you. It's hard to do big things in a comic book without pissing off somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
As much as I hate Superior Spider-Man, like that was ballsy of Dan Slott to do that and for them to let him do that because it was it split the fandom. On some people liked it, some people hated it, and that's what you get whenever you mess with these characters that have been around longer than you have.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that being said, as much as I kind of trash ongoing series, I'm going to talk about one that I just finally started up this week. I didn't get to go to the comic book shop this week, which I was bummed because I really enjoy doing those new comic book day videos on the YouTube channel. I didn't get to go because my wife had some car trouble that I had to take care of. So I finally kind of used it as an excuse to go back and start reading a book that's just kind of been sitting on my shelf. And that book is Carnage. I read the first 3 issues. I'm not sure exactly how far they are. I get it through Marvel.com. So it's usually I'm always at least a couple of weeks behind just because of the way they ship it. And I would say that this is kind of one of those books, like I was saying when you talked about Black Widow, they kind of lead you on a little bit. The first issue, it was cool. it got really boring in the middle. It was very exposition heavy in the middle. Like it was dialogue bubbles everywhere, which was a super bummer because I've talked about that a lot in the past. Carnage is a villain that everyone is, I don't get it. Like I understand why comic book fans don't really like him because he's kind of like the bastard son of Venom and they just made him up because Venom was so popular. But man, I loved him as a kid because he looks so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I agree I understand why people don't like him because he never really quite lives up to his potential because he is very scary and he does have, I mean, the guy, Cletus is his name, that, the actual human being, he is a psychopath. And so there's a lot of horror aspects. He's definitely been hit or miss just because without the right writer, it doesn't work very well. So I understand why people are always disappointed with him, but I've always thought that he was a cool character. I thought that they did a really cool job with him. They did a really short miniseries during Superior Spider-Man called Superior Carnage. I thought that was cool, even though it was based around the Wizard, which I'm not a huge fan of that character. He pops up in Marvel comic books here and there, and he's kind of a weird character. I don't really like him, but I thought that miniseries was pretty good. And this, what I've read of the first 3 issues is pretty cool. It takes this weird turn, and I forgot that this was part of his character. I forgot that John Jameson is a werewolf.
Yeah.
I completely forgot because it's not brought up all that often. I completely forgot about that, and he pops up in this book. I think he's in the first issue, but it doesn't become apparent that he's a werewolf until the second issue. I was like, because they were weird about him, and then I was like, that's right. There's something weird about him. And then all of a sudden he becomes a werewolf. Like that's the cliffhanger in issue 2. And I read all 3 of these today. So it was just like, it was kind of like binge watching some on Netflix. You get that would have been a really cool cliffhanger, but I'm just going to read the next one or I'm going to watch the next episode. So it doesn't really work that way. And then the 3rd issue was really cool because it just literally a Carnage werewolf battle. So that was pretty cool.
How does he become a werewolf again? I forget.
In this particular book, I don't know his origin story, but in this particular book, he goes to the moon because he's an astronaut and he finds some gem. And that's how he becomes a werewolf.
I know on the cartoon, that's how the symbiote gets brought back is by John Jameson. Yeah. Is that comic too?
It's related. They say that it's similar. It's an alien technology, and so it's similar to the suit. But the Venom suit comes back with Spider-Man
from Secret Wars.
Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars.
That makes sense how they would merge that then for the cartoon
for sure. But I mean, the book is pretty cool. I don't know if it's something that I'll keep up with. Like I said, I have a huge problem with ongoing series, and he's not necessarily a character I feel like I have to read. So it might be something that doesn't make the cut. But so far, for a book that I'm not really emotionally invested in, it's a pretty cool read. Like I said, that werewolf Carnage battle is pretty fun. I mean, there's no depth beyond that. Other than it's just a really cool battle to watch. Or to read. Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on. But I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, then definitely pick it up.
Awesome, man.
All right. So on to nerd news.
For sure. So every week we talk about the big nerd news stories that have come up since the last time we spoke. So this week's no different, and we'll go ahead and get started. I don't have much this week. Not a lot has happened, but there are a couple things.
Other than Star Wars getting canceled.
The first one is a tie to last week's episode. If we hadn't done last week's episode, I probably would not bring it up, but I feel like I have to. Mad Dogs has not been renewed for a season 2.
Yeah, I feel like it was announced like right after we posted the episode. So I want to think that they just listened to our episode.
Like, these guys are fucking right.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I like the resolution of the first season like we talked about last week. I think that's kind of a cool way to end it.
Yeah.
Somebody out there with Amazon Prime is going to come across this show and really enjoy it. And they'll have that nice little story, even though it didn't play to us as well as it has played to others.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere that I can't remember what the article was. They were bitching and they were basically like, this was the best show this year. I'm like, did we watch the same fucking show? Like, are you serious right now? Like, Yeah, I mean, I like that particular character's arc, and I liked how that story ended. It's almost obviously I like this other show a lot better, but Master of None, I'd be completely, well, I mean, I guess they've already announced it. It's going to be a second season, but I would be okay if they just started over with that show and just, it was an anthology. Each season's a different story, because for me, that season ended just perfectly. That's the end of that story. I didn't obviously like Mad Dogs as much as I like Master of None, but it kind of goes the same format where that'd be okay if that was the end of they kind of left a little bit of a cliffhanger, so they could have picked up where that season left off. But I don't know if I'm happy. I'm content with the fact that Mad Dogs is over, because that arc was cool, but the show in general just kind of dragged.
I think if they had renewed it for a season 2, I would have almost felt obligated to watch it. For
sure.
And I wouldn't have enjoyed it. And so that would have just been a mess anyways. So,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm happy it's not renewed as well. Let's see. Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey were cast in the Dark Tower movie that has been like gestating for forever.
Yeah. I feel like we talk about Stephen King a lot, and we always talk about how we're big fans. And then we always talk about books of his that are like super uber popular.
Yeah.
And we've never read them.
Yeah.
I've never read this Dark Tower.
I haven't either, and it seems like it would be a bit of a task to read it, because there's quite a few books and there's the comics, right?
Yep.
So I don't feel like I could consume it all. So I'm not going to make like a nerd year resolution to do this before the movie
I mean, you wouldn't follow through on it anyways.
Yeah, you're right. I can't even finish the fucking Stand. But I don't know. I mean, that's quite the cast for this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know that Stephen King fans love this story and are probably pretty excited because it's been on again, off again for such a long time. Idris Elba has been cast as the gunslinger, Roland Deschain. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
I don't know why you looked at me. I have no idea.
And then Matthew McConaughey will be playing the villain, who is the Man in Black. And I won't lie, like you said, I don't know anything about this. So yeah, I mean, it seems pretty cool, I guess.
Oh yeah, those are two great actors. And,
I mean, again, it's an awesome cast. And
it's a Stephen King work, so you know it's going to be good in that sense. The story's going to be tight, and well, tight is a hard word to say, just because he does like to put his own universe stuff in there, and sometimes it drags. Like 11/22/63, they took out all of that stuff, and I've fucking loved that show so far.
Yeah, I haven't watched the third episode yet, but the first two were awesome. And
yeah, so I think if you trim that kind of stuff out of there, which obviously I've never read these books, so I don't know how much of that is in there, if any. But if you can kind of trim that stuff out, I think obviously he's a fantastic writer and it's a fantastic cast.
Yep. Awesome. Let's see. It appears as though they are moving ahead with a sequel to Suicide Squad already, with David Ayer and Will Smith, both, at least both of them coming back. They would probably start filming it next year from what the story says, which they must be confident in Suicide Squad, I guess, since that movie doesn't come out till August.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes me feel a little bit better about the fact that I have to root for this movie. But I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that they think it's going to do well with critics. They just think it's going to do well at the box office.
Yeah. I mean, that second trailer that came out a month or two ago got really good feedback. I know it hit the right chord with a lot of the audience. So, I mean, maybe they're going off of that. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I think maybe given the timing of this, I know pre-sale tickets are for Dawn of Justice, so maybe they're tracking that. I mean, that's loosely tied to this movie, so maybe they figure like most of the people that are going to go see that movie are also going to go see Suicide Squad, so maybe that's part of the timing of them finally greenlighting the sequel. Yeah,
for sure. Speaking of Dawn of Justice, I feel like we talk about this every episode, and it obviously is coming out in a few weeks, so it's kind of picking up steam with news outlets. But I guess a writer for Entertainment Weekly saw it, and he tweeted something out about it. And I wanted to read this to you because I'm looking forward to this episode where we review it, because I think it's going to be fun and we're going to yell at each other. So he said, if you loved Man of Steel, you'll love Batman v Superman.
Okay.
If you loved Man of Steel but hated the end, Batman v Superman may redeem that. If you hated Man of Steel and the whole grim/dark thing, okay, probably not for you. Wonder Woman is fearsome. There's a moment between Batman and Superman that'll make even the most cynical eye tear up a little, and fans will have a lot to discuss and fight over.
Okay.
So,
we're going to talk about Man of Steel, so we'll definitely get our thoughts on that here in a little bit. We're going to do another comic book movie redo.
Yeah, why don't we just dive into that? I'm done with Thurn News.
Okay, cool. So like I said, we're going to do a comic book movie redo, kind of put our money where our mouth is. We trash on some of these films, even though the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men movies and certain comic book movies are great and we love them. There's some bad ones out there, and we did this a few episodes ago. I guess it was when we did a review of the Green Inferno, and at that particular point, we were just kind of trying to, I don't want to say it was necessarily filler, because we knew that the episode was going to be kind of short, but it turned into a lot more, and I actually, in retrospect, wish we had just scrapped the Green Inferno review, because I didn't really like that movie, because I had a lot of fun talking about the comic book movie redo. So we're going to do another installment of that. We had a lot of choices as far as movies to choose from. And I think we're going to do The Last Stand. So X-Men, the third X-Men movie, The Last Stand, Fantastic Four, the most recent Fantastic Four, and then, of course, Man of Steel. I figure we could just do it in chronological order. So The Last Stand, Man of Steel, and then Fantastic Four, if that's all right with you.
Works for me.
All right. So the first movie, obviously, that we're going to talk about is X-Men The Last Stand. It was released in 2006. It was directed by Brett Ratner. And we've talked a lot about these movies lately and Rotten Tomatoes in general because of the draft. And we've talked a lot about these particular movies recently because the new X-Men movie is on my list. I mentioned, I think it was a couple episodes ago, and maybe I've actually been last episode, that the first two X-Men movies did really well. I think I said they were like the high 80s, low 90s. I was a little off on that, but I was doing it off the top of my head. I actually have the exact numbers. The first X-Men movie was 81%. X2 X-Men United was 86%. Both of those movies were directed by Bryan Singer, who did the latest Days of Future Past, which I should have wrote that one down. This movie, unfortunately, was 58%. So it's not horrible. It's not considered fresh, but it's a huge drop off from the first two.
I'm surprised it's that high, to be honest, because this movie is hot garbage.
Yeah, it really is. So you just want to go ahead and get into the redo?
For sure.
What you didn't like? For me, this movie, I think there's some stuff in there that you can keep. The Fantastic Four, obviously, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. You just got to fucking scrap that movie and start over. The X-Men, The Last Stand, and Man of Steel, there's stuff in there that I think we should keep.
Yeah, for sure.
This one is a little bit different. I think that the first two films kind of felt like Wolverine stories. It's really kind of, this trilogy is kind of his arc. Well, at least the first two films were. As far as I'm concerned, the first film is him finding the X-Men and kind of learning to trust these people.
Yeah.
And then the second one, obviously, is full-fledged Wolverine with the whole Stryker thing and his origin story. And they feel very intimate, even though they are big summer blockbusters and they were huge at the box office. They feel intimate because there's some really great character work in the first two X-Men movies. And for some reason, they decided to get completely away from that in this film. And it's just, it's a fine popcorn summer movie. If the standard hadn't already been set by the first two movies, we expected these really intimate, fun movies. And they got completely away from that. I hated the fact that Cyclops was killed off screen. That was bullshit. They tried way too hard. They shoehorned all these characters because I'm assuming they thought that this was going to be the last X-Men movie. So I feel like they just shoehorned a ton of characters like Juggernaut's in this movie. Even though I like that character, I think he's an interesting character in the comic books. The fact that they just kind of shoehorned him in, they threw Beast in here for good measure too. And the story was awful. It just didn't work. And I think they figured by the climax, everybody coming together, all these characters coming together, that they thought it was going to pay off. And it just was a hot mess. And the story just didn't work at all.
100%. There was a lot of different threads going on in this story. For me, my biggest gripe, and it has been since I saw it in 2006, was Cyclops dying. Especially early on in the movie, like you said, off screen. He's my favorite X-Men, and no movie has really done him justice yet, in my opinion. So I'm really hoping that, when the young Cyclops shows up in Apocalypse in a few months, that the character's done justice. That was a big flaw for me, and I really didn't like the cure for a mutation as well.
sure.
Like if you're going to do the Dark Phoenix storyline, which this movie attempts to do, that's all you need. Like that's such a strong enough story that you don't need to sprinkle in the other stuff. Like I think that you should have just focused on Jean Grey.
For sure.
Especially the way X2 ends.
Yeah. I was super psyched when X2 ended. Like that's such an awesome cliffhanger for movie or for comic book fans. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think it needs to be a much more simpler, intimate story like the first two. Kind of stay with that same formula of the first two movies. Just focus on her. Fuck the Cure.
Yep.
Bring in some of these. I like Juggernaut. I think they did a really good job of casting him. I think that he's a cool. Oh, did you not agree?
No, I was just going to ask what you thought of the I'm the Juggernaut bitch thing.
I wasn't a fan.
Okay.
But at that point, I was just kind of like rolling my eyes at this whole movie, which I know this has nothing to really do with the movie. One of the worst movie going experiences I've ever been.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it was my own fault. It was a midnight showing. It was actually one of the first midnight showings I went to, and it was really hot because there was like 1 million people. This place was packed, and as soon as it started, I had to pee.
Oh,
and this is like a 2.5 hour movie.
Oh yeah.
And the entire time, that's all I remember on this movie is that I had to pee so fucking bad. It like was painful at the end.
Oh God, I hate that.
And I won't get up. I refuse.
Yeah.
The last time I got up for a movie was the last Transformers because I had to take a shit. And like I've said it before, that's the best part of that movie was me taking that shit. That was garbage. But yeah, like you said, it just needs to be a much more simple kind of intimate story. But I do like that they introduced some of these characters. Is Nightcrawler even in this movie?
No.
I remember thinking that.
No, Alan Cumming was like doing theater or something and didn't come back for it.
That was a shame because one of my favorite scenes from this whole franchise is him breaking into the White House in X2. Such a fucking badass scene.
Yeah. He stole a show in X2, obviously, and then they don't reference where he is. I remember there was a video game, though, that came out before X3, and it was like, if you play this game, it will explain why Nightcrawler is not in The Last Stand. And I played it, and I don't think I ever beat it because it was a shitty game.
Yeah.
But it was something along the lines of he kind of gets back in touch with God and stuff, and Nightcrawler is a religious character, and he's like, I can't do this violence anymore, or something along those lines. Some cop out. So
yeah, for sure.
That was disappointing.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have for this particular movie. It was it was such a weird. Just they tried way too much, and they tried way too hard, and they should have just kind of stuck with the same formula of great character work, these characters that we love, and giving them a satisfying ending. I thought that the ending between Jean Grey and Wolverine was cool.
See, I thought that was cool, but for me, I hate the love triangle between those two and Cyclops.
Oh, I thought that was good.
I think you leave Cyclops alive and you have him have some kind of ending like that with Jean Grey.
Okay.
I mean, that's my opinion, being a huge Cyclops fan. I mean, I like Wolverine just as much as the next guy, but I mean, that was the relationship there. So Cyclops dies and then Wolverine's like, well, don't mind if I do.
But I like how that plays in Wolverine. Obviously, that movie is a lot different if this movie is a lot different.
Yeah.
But I just like how that played in Wolverine. So,
what do you think about Professor X dying?
I don't mind it so much, honestly.
See, I don't like the way that they did it. But if this movie was the movie we were making, whereas the Dark Phoenix storyline, I think his death, if they did it right, could carry a lot of weight and carry it into the climax. And it doesn't really do that in The Last Stand. It's just another death of another character in a movie where all sorts of
just
dumb
chaos.
shit happens. Yeah, chaos.
Yeah, for sure.
I know we're moving on. I just wanted to touch on the characters they do bring in. I liked the characters they brought in, like Angel and Kitty Pryde.
I was pretty excited about Angel just because I was a huge Ben Foster fan, and he's so underused.
Are you not anymore? Because what is he in now?
I was very disappointed with The Mechanic. I don't know why I thought I was going to like it.
Is that the last thing he was in?
No, I don't know. I don't have his filmography memorized, but he wasn't great in Lone Survivor. But that movie had other problems, not just him. But I don't know why I thought Jason Statham movie was going to be a good vehicle for Ben Foster. But
apparently he was in The Finest Hours that just came out.
Oh yeah.
But before that, he hadn't really done anything of note since Lone Survivor.
All right, cool.
All right, want to move on to our next film that we're going to lend our talents to.
So the next film, like I said, is Man of Steel. It was released in 2013. It was directed by, of course, Zack Snyder. Was surprising for me. You thought 58% was surprising for The Last Stand. 56% on Rotten Tomatoes.
So you're telling me The Last Stand got better critic reviews than Man of Steel?
Yeah. Well, I was surprised because I pretty much can't stand this movie.
And that's what, so you asked me what movies we should do. And the only reason I said Man of Steel is because honestly, I just want to know what what a Superman movie Pat would be interested in would look like.
Yeah.
Because you don't like the character. You don't like this movie. So I want to know what is the perfect Superman movie for Pat Coon. So that's why I brought it up.
Okay, cool. I have a hard time talking about this film because like Tyler said, I am not a fan of the character. What?
So what, did it rape you?
Yeah, Man of Steel raped me. That's why he's made of steel because he's his boner. I don't know. That was dumb. Anyways, I'm just not a fan of the character because he raped me. Now I have to leave that in. Other than Batman, I'm just not a huge fan of DC Comics. I knew I wasn't going to like this movie going in, and of course I didn't. I don't like this movie because, like Tyler said in that tweet, I feel like this was kind of the start of the Dark Knight trend of making comic book movies really dark. Batman is dark and brooding. Superman is kind of a good old boy. He's not that kind of guy. He's like a clean cut kind of superhero. So the fact that they tried to take a character that's not dark and brooding and kind of put that gloss over it kind of bothered me a lot. The movie is really bloated. It needs serious editing. The exposition of the stuff on Krypton was a fucking waste of time because they say the same information like 3 or 4 goddamn times later in the movie. So why do we have to have that 20 minutes of him on Krypton? The only reason that I can justify that scene being in the movie is because they were like, oh, well, it'll be really cool to see everybody on Krypton. It's not even that fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's really kind of lame. When I first saw this film, and I think this is the part that might surprise you, the clips, like him kind of growing up as Superman, bothered me. But now the more I read American Alien, the more it doesn't necessarily, that idea of those clips doesn't really bother me as much, in a sense that I think it's still a good idea. And then if we're writing this movie, I think that we keep that in there. We just do a better job at actually coming up with better clips. Yeah. Because I think American Alien kind of took that same format and just made it better. And of course, the whole tornado scene, that's fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Who cares? You can run, you're faster than a bullet. Go there, come back. The people, it's a fucking tornado, man. They're not paying attention to what you're fucking doing anyways. Just go get him. And who gives a fuck what they think?
For some reason,
you saved your dad.
I thought you were going to say, who gives a fuck about Kevin Costner? I don't know why. That's what I thought you were going with
that bothers me so much. Like, I understand what they were trying to do as a filmmaker, as a writer, what they were trying to do, but that's so dumb. Mm-hmm. That's like, I can't even wrap my head around how just, you could either do one of two things, just go really fast and they don't know what happened, or you could just run really fast, just not as fast as a bullet. And they'll just be like, man, that kid's really fast. Like, it wasn't even that, like, he had plenty of time. But, yeah, so that obviously bothered me a lot. I do like the General Zod stuff. Yeah. I like the fact that,
I think he was a great choice for the villain of this
exactly.
movie.
One of my main problems with Superman as a character, other than the fact that he's kind of just a boring character to me, is the fact that he could do everything.
Yep.
Which is the reason why he's kind of a boring character for me. But I like the fact that General Zod he met his match.
Yeah.
They both obviously have the similar powers. But by the end of the movie, it was so much destruction. it was boring. Like, I don't know how you can make an action movie with that much action boring, but it's just like they just toss each other in between buildings and through buildings. And it just, at a certain point, when in this movie's what I think is another 2.5 hours, by that point, it's just like, I'm so bored with this destruction and just unnecessary destruction. It's almost like a Transformers movie.
Yeah. I would say you definitely make good points there. I won't say, I think that the Krypton stuff's important, but I don't think it needs to be 20 minutes.
I completely disagree, because they explain the information again. All the information that we learned from that scene, they say again, especially when he sees the hologram of his father, whatever the fuck that thing is, in the Fortress of Solitude or whatever. They explain all that stuff again, because Superman wasn't there, so he has to know some of that information.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though, is maybe you don't need to have the 20 minutes and all the exposition, but I think that it's cool to start on Krypton and him being shuttled off. I don't think you spend as much time, but I'll be honest, I've never seen the original Superman movies with Christopher Reeves. I don't know if you ever get to see Krypton in those movies, but I thought that was a good way to start this Superman story, was all the way back to what shuttles him to Earth. Like, you don't need to start on Earth. So I would cut that down. Like you said, not as much exposition. I know that diehard Superman fans aren't very kind to Pa Kent in this movie, and I think that they're absolutely correct. And I think that you're absolutely correct. Like, him telling Clark not to use his powers and then giving up his life instead of just having his kids save him is dumb. Like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't get that. I don't get what was going through their heads whenever they wrote that character like that. Like, I don't know a ton about the Superman mythos. I've never been a giant Superman fan, like you.
You just made it sound like
like you are not a Superman fan. I am not a huge Superman fan. But I can't imagine that. I would think that Pa Kent's always probably been the driving force to make Superman or Clark good. Yeah. To kind of instill those morals, and that kind of led him to use his powers for good on Earth. Because, honestly, he could enslave the whole planet and so on and so forth. So I think that Pa Kent has a lot to do with how he turned out, So that was kind of weird to me that they did that. I know Ralph Garman on Hollywood Babylon makes fun of him being a hobo for a while. And I don't think that's necessary either. So my thing is, I like the beginning at Krypton, and I don't have a problem with the climax either. I know a lot of people didn't like him killing Zod. I thought that was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. Maybe mostly because, again, I'm not a huge Superman fan, so him killing somebody doesn't really bother me. That's actually
the next thing on my list, is that he shouldn't have killed him, because when you're a superhero, you have to be... There's always that thin line between superhero and supervillain, and that's the line.
Yeah, but you've just destroyed Metropolis. Like,
you need to find a better way. You're supposed to be Superman. You can't just go fucking killing people.
I can see what you're saying. I didn't have a problem with it. Like,
what the fuck is wrong with the Phantom Zone? Why isn't that thing? You can't just shuttle them back up?
Yeah, I don't remember in that movie, because I haven't seen it since we saw it in theaters. In that movie, what happens to Zod's cronies? Like, the girl?
I have no idea.
I need to watch it again, and I wanted to watch it before we recorded this podcast, and I didn't have time to. But
I've only seen it twice.
Yeah, I would like to watch it again, especially before Batman v Superman. I know that all of the destruction wasn't received very well, and I don't have a problem with it. And especially since it's kind of shuttled Batman v Superman, where Batman kind of feels the same way that all these fans did. Like, hey, dude, you just destroyed an entire city, and you destroyed a bunch of people I loved in my Wayne building, and I like that they're going to touch on that. So I don't know. I just think that you completely redo the middle of the movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, that's not the Superman origin story anybody really wanted to see, I don't think.
No, for sure. I think, like I said at the beginning, with The Last Stand and this particular movie, I don't think that you have to completely scrap everything. I think that you can keep some of it. Obviously, I like General Zod. I think he's a good villain for Superman. I don't think that the just crazy amount of destruction is necessary. Obviously, you don't kill him. Like I said, I think you have to be better at that. You have to be Superman. You have to figure out a way not to kill him. Also, I like to keep those clips, like I said, the kind of not really exposition, but kind of him trying to figure out who he is.
Yeah.
because I like American Aliens so much, and I think there's a way that you can do that and not make it lame like Man of Steel did. And I just don't think that it needs to be dark. It's Superman is not, that's not how he is in the comic book.
I like the cinematography the way it is in this movie, and I don't mind the tone, but there needs to be a little bit more, like you said, levity. There needs to be a happier side to this story somewhere, because Superman isn't a tragic story like Batman is. It's, his parents are alive, and I don't know how long Paul Kent lasts in that universe, but it's longer.
His Earth parents are alive.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're right. There needs to be some levity there. There needs to be a little bit of, I don't know if necessarily humor, but more of maybe like the feel that you have in like the Captain America movie.
Okay.
Maybe because I compare the two characters as being the Boy Scouts of those respective universes. So maybe that's the tone you go for.
For sure. All right. So on to our last movie, which obviously I'm just going to go out and say it, and I've said it before. You just fucking scrap this whole thing.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing of this movie that I would save. It was released this past year. It was directed by Josh Trank. We actually reviewed it on the podcast. I don't remember the exact star ratings that we both gave it. I know you could check.
I gave it a 1.5.
Okay, you gave it 1.5. Yeah. I believe I gave it a 1. I know it was somewhere between 1 and 2. You could check on our website, The Nerds Podcast, under Nerd Reviews, to click on that tab, and you can check on all of the movies that we formally reviewed on the podcast. This has, as no surprise, only has 9% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I want to meet the 9% of critics that gave this a positive review.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's got to be 0, right? What I think is funny is I actually looked up what the 2005 Fantastic Four did, because it was critically panned as well, and it was 27%. That movie looks like a fucking masterpiece compared to this movie. I mean, the story actually makes sense, and it's not just a fucking hot mess.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think you completely do away with this movie. You completely strip it down to it's basically its foundation. When I say that, I mean I like the cast. They just weren't given anything to work with. Miles Teller was in Whiplash. Michael B. Jordan was in Creed and Fruitvale Station, 3 movies that I think Fruitvale Station was an honorable mention the first year that we did that list. And Miles Teller was obviously in Whiplash, which was one of my favorite movies of last year. Well, 2 years ago. Yeah. And Creed was one of my favorite movies of last year. Toby Cabell, who plays Dr. Doom, was Cuba in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is which is my favorite movie of all time. So, I mean, I think
Kate Mara has a really, really talented sister.
Yeah, she does. And her parents own the fucking New York Giants.
I didn't know that.
Her uncle owns the Pittsburgh Steelers.
What an entitled bitch.
Her family owns it. I was really confident on her dad and her uncle. I don't know if that's actually how it works out. But yeah, the Mara family owns the New York Giants.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
So she didn't get anywhere based on talent. She got because her parents had money.
I do have a thing for redheads, so
I'm surprised that her sister went full frontal and girl with the dragon tattoo, because I'm sure her parents could have bought her a better role.
Okay.
That's just what I think. Because, like, if my family's super rich, I don't have to show my pubes.
Thank God that your family's not super rich. That joke was, I like to see childish pubes.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure if you were confused or if you knew what you were saying. I was just going to let it go.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, you just completely strip this movie down. If I'm writing this from scratch, keep the cast. I don't make Ben Grimm an idiot, because he's essentially a fucking moron in this movie. He's just Reed Richards' thug, his bodyguard.
Yeah.
In the comic books, he's not Reed Richards. Reed Richards is a fucking genius. He's on a whole other level in the comic books than everybody else. But Ben Grimm isn't a fucking idiot. So, I mean, he's not quite in that category, but he has like multiple degrees in engineering. Like, he's a smart guy. So he's not a thug. I liked how, and I think they might have done a little bit of this in the first Fantastic Four movie, the 2005 Fantastic Four movie, or it may have been in the Silver Surfer. They did it recently in, was it Original Sin? Was that event that happened, I think, last year or 2 years ago in Marvel Comics, where they talked about how Ben Grimm at one point, well, Reed Richards makes a machine that can cure Ben Grimm.
Yeah.
And Johnny does something and fucks it up. And
as Johnny does.
Yeah. And I think that would be kind of a cool storyline. I think that adds a little bit extra layer to the characters, not only Ben Grimm, but also Johnny Storm, because he's kind of an asshole. But then you would have that other side of he kind of bears the weight of the responsibility of him not being able to cure Ben Grimm. So I like that idea. Now that I say that I want to get rid of everything in this movie, I do like the fact that it's a very short scene where Johnny's on that, I think it's in like an operating table or something, and he's just freaking out because he looks like he's on fire.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting idea to go with, because that would be, when you first find out, it would be terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much about this movie that are just, it's horrible. Like you barely ever get to see them use any of their powers until the very end. At that point, it's kind of wasted on this really shitty movie, and the special effects aren't good, and you just don't care about the characters. So like I said, I think needs to be a lot more character work with stuff about the original Sin stuff, and maybe not make Ben a fucking moron. Like, I don't know. There's just so much wrong with this movie.
Yeah, I like the idea that they went to a different dimension.
Yeah.
And that's how they got their powers, as opposed to space. You know, they tried to kind of separate themselves from the Fantastic Four movie that came before them. But honestly, as much as I hated the 2004, I think, Fantastic Four movie.
2005. I've already said it like 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
2005 Fantastic Four movie, you know, it does so much more than this movie does with the characters.
For sure.
So I think that you have to go that route. I don't think that it needs to be dark and gritty. That, you know, this characters like Superman, like other characters in the Marvel universe, there's some humor to them. It's not this dark, gritty type thing. It's like they're a family, and they happen to, you know, fight crime and do science, and, you know, so on and so forth. So I think that you have to give it a more fun tone.
For sure.
Like you said, there's a lot of talent in the cast. So I was pretty pleased with the cast when they announced that. I think that there is a good Fantastic Four movie that could be made with that cast. A lot of people complain about Michael B. Jordan, and I don't think that that's even an issue. Like at all. Like, I think that that's fantastic casting for the Human Torch. Maybe go somebody more menacing as Doctor Doom.
Okay.
For me, and make Doctor Doom look pretty cool instead of like metal tool bag.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Like, that looks weird and blows people's brains up or whatever with his mind, whatever he was doing whenever he was walking down that corridor and the climax. I don't know, man. Like, it's tough because, like you said, you have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
There's not much else that you can keep from this movie.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of along the lines of what I was talking about before. Maybe it's not Johnny's fault that Reed Richards can't cure him. Maybe it's Johnny's fault that when whatever event happens that makes the Fantastic Four, it's Johnny's fault that he becomes this monster. Instead of the rest of them having these fairly cool powers, Ben becomes this monster. He becomes a thing, and that's his fault. That would be kind of a cool idea, but like we said, it's kind of hard to come up with a movie just off, because I mean, you gotta have to completely dismantle this one.
Yeah, and I think the Fantastic Four is hard to do as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like,
obviously, like, historically, it's bad to do.
Like, you have this big rock creature that walks around in a hat and a trench coat.
Yeah,
and then you try to make a movie with the tone that this movie has.
You have to have a sense of humor about it.
Absolutely. I like the way that they made the thing look.
Yeah.
I mean, you could keep that.
Yeah.
I'm really just digging here for stuff that can be kept for this movie. Doctor Doom is one of the best villains in all of the Marvel Universe, and Fox is lucky to have him.
Yeah.
And they've not done him any justice in any of the films they've done. So I think that you have to do better with that character.
Yeah, for sure. I think him and Thanos is a little bit more universe, kind of the Guardians of the Galaxy type of a villain, but it's like Doctor Doom, and then there's Thanos, and I mean, of course, each character has its big villain. You have Green Goblin, of course, but just like overarching villains of the Marvel universe, Doctor Doom is definitely one. I mean, there's a reason why he was the villain in Secret Wars.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so there's definitely a lot to work with here. I just don't know how you make a movie like this dark. Like you said, it kind of has to have, it doesn't necessarily need to be meta, but it has to be self-aware in the sense that it knows it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so you gotta have to play with that. I actually don't hate the 2005 Fantastic Four as much as most people do. I am a fan of the comic book, and so I was really looking forward to this movie. Rise of the Silver Surfer I think is kind of underrated. I think it was 37% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow. Yeah, so I mean, obviously that's pretty low, but just like TMNT was last year, I think that was completely underrated, and I think that was kind of critics having a stick up their ass. Yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed Rise of the Silver Surfer.
I've seen it a couple times. I wish that they would have done more with Galactus.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's not terrible.
Yeah,
it's more watchable than the new Fantastic Four movie is.
For sure,
both of them are.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I think that you keep the cast from the new one and kind of go more for the tone from the 2005 one. And you kind of find a middle ground and go that route.
For sure. All right. So we end each episode by talking about a nerd favorite. We take turns asking each other a really nerdy question. The Ghostbusters trailer, the new Ghostbusters trailer was released today. So I just thought that we could talk about what our favorite part of that particular trailer is. I'll go first to let Tyler kind of gather his thoughts. First off, I'd like to say that I'm super glad that I drafted this film. It looks, just based off this trailer, it looks really fucking cool. I like the fact that it was really funny, and it doesn't seem like Melissa McCarthy is just a fat person falling down.
She's not that fat anymore.
No, it looks like she's lost a lot of weight. But my favorite part of the trailer, and this may or may not be confirmed, but it seems to kind of lead you to believe that it's part of that same universe as the Ghostbusters universe. So I really like that, because I mean, obviously I'm a huge fan of the first movie, definitely. The second movie, not so much. I mean, it still has its moments, but I just love that universe, and it's kind of cool that it kind of happened. It seems, based on this trailer, it seems like it happens within that universe. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Are you done?
Yeah.
I love this trailer. Like, this trailer was fantastic. I love how it started off with kind of the piano playing the familiar tone. It almost reminded me of the Jurassic World trailer.
Yeah.
But just, it looks beautiful. I love the look of the ghosts in it. They're kind of scary, but also still kind of cartoony because it is a comedy. New York looks awesome. Like, it's just bright and vibrant, and it has a fun feel to it. I think my favorite part was definitely seeing Slimer.
Oh yeah.
You know, you have your Funko Pop over there, Slimer. I have the same one. Like, that's identify Slimer with Ghostbusters, whether it's the movies or he played a big part in the cartoon. So I liked seeing that not only is Slimer in it, but it looks almost exactly like Slimer did in the original. So that was pretty cool. I love the humor in it. I think the cast is going to be fantastic. I really am excited for this movie now. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. The whole time I was watching the trailer, I kept thinking of that, and I actually tweeted this out. The Key and Peele skit with Ray Parker Jr. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It's really funny. Obviously, he does the theme for Ghostbusters. Yeah. And it's like it's like an infomercial. He's trying to sell theme songs to other movies that didn't get picked up by the movie. And it's basically just him singing the Ghostbusters theme song with other, just insert other movies. It's really, really funny.
Yeah,
you should check it out.
I will.
Yeah, I tweeted it out after I watched the Ghostbusters, the new trailer. I just, the whole time, obviously I was laughing at the trailer because the trailer is really funny.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking about that over and over again.
I think the cast they chose is really strong. Obviously, you have two heavyweights with Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig, but Kate McKinnon looks like she's going to maybe steal the show.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Leslie Jones, like, she also has like this presence about her. And,
oh, yeah, for sure.
I really like the way that she was utilized in the trailer as well. So I think it's just going to come together really nicely.
Yeah. So do you watch SNL?
On and off.
Yeah. She's used in a weird way because she I don't want to say one note, but her one note is really funny.
Yeah.
And I think I think they're utilizing her really well.
Yeah, I like her line about like, you guys are scientists or whatever, but I know New York.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And then Kate McKinnon, there's a part where she like licks a gun or something.
Yeah.
I thought that was just so weird and funny.
Yeah.
Like I think that she may steal the show.
For sure. All right. So that's the end of this episode. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at The Nerds Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, which is also at The Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. Vote for us for a podcast of the month at podcastland.com. Email us at thenerds@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Basically, any good podcatcher you use, we're on it. Also, check me out. I'm doing a show at Toast here in Evansville. We're roasting Evansville. It'll be a lot of fun. Part of the proceeds go to Keep Evansville Beautiful, charity. So definitely check us out there. Check me out there. Check us out at all the social media that I just listed off. For Patrick Kuhn.
I mean, in all fairness, that's pretty much just you two.
I've already said for Patrick Kuhn.
Tyler Hunt.
We are the nerds you're looking for. Take it easy, guys.
Pat's a dillweed.